Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today we're going to react to why the Street series died. EA's $1 billion mistake. Apparently, there's some background to why we don't get no Streets games no more. We don't get no NBA Streets, no FIFA Streets, no NFL Streets, no nothing. This is going to explain why. This is a $1 billion mistake by EA. Let's check it out.
Every year a new 2K game comes out and the same comments start flying in. When are we going to get a new NBA Street game? Why don't they just turn my park into NBA Street? The Street games, NBA, NFL, FIFA, they're dead. And they're probably never coming back. They're as dead as any game series could possibly be, and the sad truth is, it's not hard to figure out why. There was something incredibly special about the PS2 era that simply doesn't exist in 2019. A culture of risk-taking in the gaming industry that has slowly died out in favor of chasing the same trendy coins year in and year out.
Facts.
Risk-taking doesn't necessarily exist in AAA gaming anymore.
Facts. It don't. It is so bad, bro, because every game just feels like it's the same copy and paste game every year. There's no innovation, there's no risk taking, there's no trying to raise the bar or raise the standard for every single game. They don't do it no more, bro. Back in the PlayStation 2 era, there used to be hella games that took those risks, and some of them flopped, some of them succeeded. But man, the fact that you get the same copy paste game, like you look at these battle royale shooter games, they all just copy and paste. And then you know what I'm saying, they just copy and paste. First person shooters, all copy and paste. Sports games, damn near all copy and paste. It's just, I just wish we would have more games, more options. And then you get these indie titles, and they're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good, but they're so basic and so minimal. Like, there's nothing that's really going to take it over the top to make it seem like it's better. But that's just my personal opinion, though. But that is so true. The PlayStation 2 era, that's why I say, if you didn't grow up in the PlayStation 2 era, you missed out. Because there were so many games, so many different, varieties. So many games that took a risk. Some games played like shit. Some games caught your eye, caught your attention. But anyways, though, let's get back into this.
It's all but been filtered out in favor of things that are safe bets, in favor of things that are more marketable, in favor of things that you can count on for a revenue stream. Games like Red Dead release and are phenomenal, and they drop alongside games like Super Smash Bros., but when you turn your systems on, what you're usually getting is a fairly predictable selection of games. But for a little over one generation, predictable wasn't in the vocabulary of one publishing house. One publisher that, as hard as it is to believe today, had the letters EA in their name. So today we're looking at how that publishing house crashed and burned, how their street games died along with them, but more importantly, why. It has been 2 console generations since the street games were actually relevant within gaming, and that's a shame, because these were some of the greatest sports games that generation had ever seen. And the problem is that there's a significant flaw in the way that EA does business that will never allow them to exist again. So they're looking.
And it's called, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. That's what it's called, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly how EA killed these games because they really did. If any game deserves the title in this series, it's this one. They actually went through and made calculated efforts to ensure that they made the most money as possible while killing off these franchises. It's one of the most interesting things I've ever seen, at least in sports gaming. And so today, we're going to talk about what those things were. There are 5 really steps that were taken to kill off these games. So to get started, we have to look at what EA Big even was and how these first Street games even came to happen, and why SSX, a snowboarding game, is so important to NBA Street and NFL Street. You wanna know why the Street games were so cool? Look no further than the one man who led it. EA Big started around 2000 as a publishing arm for what EA called Extreme Sports Games. One of their first hires, a man that led Swatch, a company that grew directly out of their partnership with hip-hop culture, an Olympic freestyle skier, and the dude that invented the Olympic sport, motocross. Steve Retschachner essentially built EA Big, as well as 2 franchises that you're going to recognize. He's also the man that pitched and led the first SSX game. So yeah, dude was qualified. And immediately we see where EA started its decline. SSX was a project Sony was in love with when it was in early development. EA, however, wanted to cancel it. That's right, cancel the first SSX, the series that would lead to NBA Street, NFL Street, and so on. But the company had a silver bullet rule. It was literally called that. If you led a successful project, you earned a silver bullet. It's essentially a pass to try to create something on your own. Build on your original success. A policy that has lost its way and a freedom that no longer exists. But it did that, and because of this, SSX was allowed to happen and became a huge hit. It also led to the creation of a new initiative, EA Big. It would publish games that were sports focused but tried new things, took risks, built on what sports already were, and making them, no pun intended, bigger. Games under EA Big would fail. Probably too many games that people were very passionate about would either be canceled or not given enough time. Games like Freestyle, a game that didn't sell very well but was reasonably well received. But something changed for EA Big, and really EA in general. Something that would lead to its success and its eventual near rapid demise. Retschachner would lead a team on a project that would act as a follow-up to a concept game. It was called NBA Street Volume 2, and it's here where the wheels would start to fall off the car.
I'm sinking a few, swish, swish, swish. Nothing but that. And their jaws just dropped to the floor. African American.
Here's where the death of EA Big and the Street games start, at a peak, which I guess is where all empires begin their fall. It's here where EA kind of lost their minds. NBA Street Volume 2 was led by Retschachner and was absolutely phenomenal. It took every promise that EA Big made and fulfilled it. It was basketball at its most accessible and most ridiculous. Streetball culture in New York is serious. Go to the Rucker during Drew League, and the announcer has a nickname for every guy handling the ball.
Nigga, did you just say... See, this is what I mean by white people, man. This nigga just said going to Rucker to play at the Drew League. Nigga, the Drew League is in fucking California. The Rucker is the Rucker. Rucker Park is Rucker Park, bro. The Drew League is in California. What the fuck is you talking about, bro? This is what I mean, bro. White people.
And during the peak of And One, which was the early 2000s, the things you saw on your TV were things you wanted to do. So Volume 2 gave you that chance. If you could think it, you could almost always do it with damn near whoever you wanted to do it with. Want to toss the ball at the head of your opponent, do a few And One inspired moves, and then dunk from the damn near 3-point line? You could do that. But importantly, there was a soul there underneath the gloss. A visual heart and music-driven hook, hip-hop inspired culture. There was a skill curve, a challenging build-your-own-play career mode, and unlockables that kept you engaged. NBA Street Volume 2 was damn near perfect. Too perfect, actually. It created a culture amongst EA Big that EA took a bit too far. See, Volume 2 was a sequel, and a sequel that sold. EA wasn't taking a huge risk with the games launching around NBA Street. NFL Street was another big licensed project that would feast on the back of the Madden craze that at the time was absolutely booming, and even FIFA Street was a planned international project that EA likely considered at the time to be low risk thanks to its licensed status, which told EA one thing: stick with the establishment and don't let it go. EA began to look at EA Big as the polar opposite of what it was built to be. It was no longer about being extreme. Volume 2 showed the company that there was a profit margin to be managed here. It was no longer about taking risks. EA Big was no longer about passion projects. Games like Cranked and new IPs that took risks were all cancelled or never got the green light because they were all of a sudden too much of a gamble. After Street Volume 2, EA got rid of the silver bullet system and began to shift their business model to one that made it impossible to continue NFL, FIFA, NBA Street, or even SSX long term. So how exactly did all this happen? And why will we never see these series return?
Because it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
That's all I want.
And then?
No and then.
And then?
No and then. No and then. No and then. No and then.
EA Big marked a shift in EA's business model that actually led to the realities we unfortunately experience with the company today. NFL Street, NBA Street, FIFA Street all sold reasonably well enough to become symptomatic of the change. See, in the early 2000s, as EA began releasing Volume 2 and NFL Street, they also began restructuring to what you can refer to as a more conservative, risk-averse business model, and they began closing studios and arms of their business. They began putting pressure on big developers. What EA wanted was sequels, but this created a problem. See, the soul of games like NFL and NBA Street were creativity, soundtrack curation, and the aesthetic absurdity of the releases, but slowly, that all began to drip away. In just 6 years, EA Big published 5 NBA Street games. You heard that right, 5 games in 6 years. In 7 years, Big published 5 SSX games. 5 in 7 years. EA stopped allowing Big to take risks and forced them into a cycle that sucked them dry. 3 years, 3 FIFA Street games. Just look at NFL Street. What I am about to say is not a joke. In January of 2004, EA Big published NFL Street. In December of the exact same year, they published NFL Street 2. That's right. The sequel to NFL Street released the same exact year as the original. This problem got out of control across the big label. Sequels weren't just being prioritized, they were happening just by slapping a number on things. NBA Street Volume 3 was fine, but was pushed out without innovation and without a soul, and by the time Home Court hit, Street had turned into a vapid, literally dark trounce to improve gameplay, but a shell-like resemblance of what the series was.
Yeah.
The same degrading quality at NFL Street.
It was a good game. Let's be real, it was the best basketball game they put out on the fucking 360 console. Yes, it was better than NBA Live 10. I will attest to that. Look at the player models. Look at the fluid animations. Nothing was PlayStation 2 like. Everything was up to date. I don't know why EA won't use the engine that they used on this and just put it in the newer NBA Lives. I mean, just the whole code of this game. Obviously you have to take out some of the arcade parts, like niggas jumping like 20 feet in the air and doing fucking dunks and shit from damn near the 3-point line. Yeah, you have to take that out the game. And then, you know, the bending of the backboard and stuff like that. But other than that, though, this game was pretty flawless, bro. You know, it didn't have the same love and care that the previous NBA Streets had, but it was still a good basketball game. That's one thing you can't deny about it. You could say it didn't have the same soul or the same essence of the previous NBA Lives, of NBA Streets, but it was still a good basketball game. It was still fun to play. It was something that you could always go back and play again. It was always that, and I that's why I say the NBA Street basketball series is the best basketball video game series hands down, because all 4 games were flawless. All 5 games, if you want to include the PSP game, which was pretty much Volume 2 on the PSP. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, bro, they could have... I just wish they would use this engine, bro. Tweak it a little bit to make it more realistic in the simulation terms. And then just approve upon it with that. These graphics are still better than any NBA Live they've put out. These animations are still better than any NBA Live they put out. I don't know why EA just wouldn't do that, bro. Now we ain't gonna never get NBA Live because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
And eventually, FIFA Street. EA became obsessed with numbers. And I don't mean numbers as in money, which they did, but I mean numbers as in labels. Volume 2, Volume 3, NFL Street 2, NFL Street 3. It wasn't about making great games, it was about making them quickly to sell them quickly. Brett Schaffer would eventually tell a journalist that this penchant for low-risk, quick turnaround products is what would eventually lead to the shuttering of EA big stores. But there was more to it than that. While sequelitis may have killed series like NBA Street, there's another far more sinister reason those franchises died.
Ben, give her some money. It's easier.
EA Big cannibalized itself in 2008 and turned into EA Freestyle as EA attempted to restructure. Freestyle was a failed experiment, but the restructuring was for relatively obvious reasons. Let's take a look at NBA 2K as it exists today. You take your creative player and you make them better and better as you rise through the ranks, with the ultimate goal of being the best on the park. You want to be better than every other real-life player. And this works because the game is tightly built, less than random, as a simulation. Then the game gives you the chance to buy your way to the top with real-world money. NBA Street has a similar My Career mode. You build your player from the ground up. The problem, NBA Street is not, and really can't be built for hyper-competitive gameplay. It is not, and cannot, be an esport. So how do you monetize it? Around 2008, when Big closed, the gaming industry was changing. DLC had become gaming's biggest trend. When you bought a game, especially a AAA game, you almost immediately expected that eventually more would come to it. Call of Duty would begin its reign and its Mac Pack DLCs would as well. Companies like Bethesda would begin testing the market for things like Horse Armor, and Fallout 3 would see multiple $20 expansions. The rise of web-enabled consoles gave EA a choice. Continue to release games like NBA Street, games that most people enjoyed playing solo, games not built for DLC or multiplayer leaderboards, or focus those resources on games that can, over time, ask and get more from you than just your $60. NFL Street and NBA Street, for that matter, would both have their main progression systems entirely broken with the introduction of monetization, and even DLC. And thus, these games are left behind alongside things like SSX that struggle with the same issues. But there's one more thing that has killed off these franchises and kept them 6 feet under, and that is one that's hard to justify.
Are you open?
Read the sign.
I'll have a Krabby Patty Deluxe and a double chili kelp fries.
No, you won't.
Brett Schaffer would eventually tell Eurogamer that there was a culture change at EA after NFL and NBA Street took off. Game makers ceased being the people pitching games to EA. Instead, he said, it became salespeople, marketers that were creating these products and led to an obvious decline in quality and motivation. But here's the biggest problem with bringing back NBA or even NFL Street today, the thing that will stop the revival moving forward. How do you sell it? Sure, if you're one of the people watching this video, you're probably someone that would throw money at it the second it's announced. But the problem is, believe it or not, the game's competition would probably be too much for it to handle. 2K and NBA Live both have My Park-like functions that certainly play far differently than NBA Street, but to most, Street will simply look like a less feature-complete version of 2K. The NFL, with all the CTE talk and trouble the league has found itself in, would probably be hesitant to allow EA, which, by the way, does not have an unlimited license to use NFL likenesses and logos without the NFL's approval, to create a game that's fairly brutal and certainly a harsher depiction of the sport. That would be a tough sell for the NFL. Essentially, the market for these games has shifted, not just amongst the people buying them, but amongst the people making them, and even amongst the license holders. The market is also closed for some consumers, mostly amongst younger consumers as opposed to the older ones that spend time actually playing these games in the first place. These games are not Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Online. There aren't a whole lot of ways to revolutionize them or modernize them 2 generations later. They're sports games. They are, for the most part, what they are and always will be. The one exception here is SSX. You cannot tell me that there's no market for an extreme snow game, especially with Steep being the literal only AAA competitor on the market. But alas, clearly testing has shown that the market is small enough to pass on. Doesn't mean EA is right, it just means that they're so risk averse now that it becomes far more unlikely. The market maybe just isn't right for NFL and NBA Streets, and even if it is, the company that has to make the games is unlikely to take that kind of risk to find out. Unlike so many other games that are written about on this channel, the Street series has no current developer. There's no one to send a message to, but there is a shell, a vapid husk of what was once a publishing house and suite of developers that took their time, that once took risks, that once understood that profit margins weren't the only reason to create. The Street games were an experiment. No one knew that they would work, no one knew whether or not anyone would care, but they got made anyways, because a group of talented people had good ideas, and they took the time to understand the culture, and they executed. That's the key here, understanding the culture. And no, I don't mean street ball culture, which was done well and understood well enough, but I mean the gaming culture. Understanding what games mean to people, why people play them, understanding why people spend their hard-earned cash on them. It was, as it still is today, to have fun, to enjoy themselves, and sometimes to escape. That's what EA Big was all about. Fun. It wasn't about realism, it wasn't about complicated systems, or really even competition. It was about taking the world's most famous athletes in all of their sports and saying, do whatever the hell you like, this is your playground. It took basketball, football, and soccer and said, break the rules. Now EA is so structured, so focused on bottom lines and dollar signs, so focused on complex messages and their financial tools, they've forgotten the very thing that made them cool. Sometimes it's better to break the rules.
Well guys, that was it for today's video, and as always sort of a dialogue. I want to know what you guys think about the current state of AAA gaming, and more importantly, the current state of sports games. Are they anything that you're interested in at all? And are the street games kind of something that if you didn't like traditional sports games or something you were interested in, would you be interested at all, or would you even care if NBA Street was revived or NFL Street? Would that be something you would buy? And I guess maybe most importantly to me, would you want to see something like SSX return? It hasn't been that long.
I don't care for SSX. But anyways, though, I wouldn't mind an NBA Street coming back, but the problem is, will it have the proper care? Will it be like it used to be? Will the atmosphere, will the culture, will everything be implemented into it? That's the problem. EA has lost its soul. And I don't think it's ever going to come back. EA has lost its fucking soul. They have sold out to microtransactions and Ultimate Team. They have sold out to just being a shit company. So, with that being said, I wouldn't mind it, but I just don't trust EA at this point. EA has lost all my trust. With their handling of the NBA Live series, it's clear that EA is just not to be trusted at this point in time. But anyway, so that's just going to about do it for this one. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section below. This is a really interesting video that explains why the Street series died. And it's actually pretty accurate too if you think about it. Yeah, the Street series died because they stopped taking risks. They just focus on sequel after sequel after sequel instead of giving these games time and bringing them back with proper care and all that. Instead, it was just push it out, push it out, push it out, push it out. We need that money. Push it out, push it out, push it out. Instead of taking their time, like I think that sequence is crazy, bro. The first NFL Street and the second NFL Street came out in the same year. That's crazy, bro. But anyways, though, that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see you all next video. Till then, peace out.